today we have Mr. David Barbe. How have you been, my friend?
Jameson, I'm fantastic. It's great to be on the show.
I'm glad you could finally get in here. We've been working on this for months, man.
I
I
know.
know we're both busy guys, so I'm glad we could finally line it up and got an hour with you today, man.
Yeah.
Hey, what you been up to? How's school going? How's the baseball teams doing? The dogs, everything good with you?
There are 4 teams. School is great. M-Bus great, students great. It's good every year. I feel more inspired than ever.
That's great.
The team aspect, I have 4 teams that I'm passionately engaged with.
Okay, tell me about them.
The Atlanta Hawks, the first professional sports game I ever saw.
Really? Was the Hawks?
Was Pete Maravich's rookie season, and the Hawks still played down at Georgia Tech.
Oh, wow.
And the Hawks are good. They're an exciting young team that made a good off-season move. There's nothing not to be happy about.
Yeah.
My lifelong Atlanta Braves. They're the defending world champions.
Yes.
And just this morning, it was the double whammy of the Braves being tied for first place with the Mets and the Mets putting Max Scherzer on the IL, which is just like gloating sports fan stuff.
Yes,
but that's fine. I'm not above it.
You're good with it. Good with it.
3, the Dogs.
The Bulldogs.
We love the
baby.
Dogs,
We
the
love
defending
'em.
national
We love 'em.
champions who laid a whooping on Oregon.
On the number 11.
A good team, coached by a guy that knows the Dogs, and they destroyed them.
Yeah.
And then Chase Park Little League, current back-to-back 21-22 Little League champions in Athens.
Nothing but W's over here, man.
Yeah, it's feeling good.
I'm glad.
So, so rock and roll, sports,
Yeah.
water skiing, school.
That's
good.
the life of the David Barbe, correct?
That's right.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad to
Those
hear
are-
that you're getting wins in all aspects. I mean,
Trying my
it's been
best.
It's been a good year to be a Georgia guy. Let's get into the music a bit.
Let's do that.
I've been plotting how I'm going to tell this story here. I want to make sure we get it like chronologically almost.
Okay.
I was under the impression that you were a later Athens guy. I thought that you were kind of like after the R.E.M. thing, like a few years, if that makes sense.
I was.
So you okay? That's correct.
Yeah. So R.E.M. started in their first show is April '79.
Okay. Wow, that's earlier.
Or
than I thought.
80, 79 or 80. I mean,
Somewhere
really
in there.
early. Yeah. The Radio for Europe single came out in '81.
Okay.
Which is the year I graduated high school.
Okay, so you're
And-
just showing up. Are you aware of them in high school?
I was aware of the B-52s in high school,
Okay.
and I was aware of R.E.M. right when I came up here.
Okay.
And heard the single, and was like, man, those 2 songs.
Yeah.
The thing about R.E.M. to me is that when I had this kind of music in my head, and I would read these books. This is a crazy tangential story, but I'm going to tell it anyway.
Tell me. That's what we're here.
So I would read these books about the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Don't ask me to pick. It's a career. It's career. Obviously, the Beatles are a perfect score on all records.
Of course. Length?
But there's something about the length, whatever. I mean, you can be a classic rock band for 100. You can have 2 good albums and be a classic rock band for 100 years.
Yeah.
But there are certain Rolling Stones songs that make my blood boil in a way that no other music does. So
Same.
I'd read these books about them, and they would always talk. Like the Beatles books always talked about the skiffle craze in England in the 50s, right? The thing that led to rock and roll.
Okay.
And it's this kind of music that's like, does your chewing gum lose its flavor on the bedpost overnight? That's Lonnie Donegan. Like a fast-paced like music that's not rock and roll, but it's a little more blood pumping than like
still wearing suits
like
and everything. Yeah.
But anyway, one of the songs I'd read about in these books was called Rock Island Line, which is like an old blues song, like Lead Belly or Robert Johnson or somebody.
Okay.
But when I heard the name of that song, I had a song that I had written in my head to fill that title.
Okay.
I mean, I do this all the time. Like I will, it's that. There was one I read. I had, like a modern 2022 shipping issue or something the other day, and there was an issue with the delivery system. And so now I have a song in my head called "Delivery System." It's actually pretty good.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that's a good
title.
It's a driving one. Yeah, it is.
Yes, it used to be right in your head. Like when you hear a title, that's usually what it takes for me. It's a title.
You're right.
Yes,
but that's what I got to. Songwriter's curse or blessing, right?
Yeah.
So, but I had this Rock on the Line song in my head, and what it sounded like was kind of like slightly dirtier sounding Birds with a disco beat.
Interesting. Okay.
Like a driving beat, kind of slightly fuzzy, vocals not super clear, and kind of jangly guitars. So as you might imagine, the first time I heard Radio for Europe and Sitting Still, it's like, oh my God, that's that sound I hear in my head, and damn it, somebody beat me to it. But they were better at it from the beginning. But then I saw them the first time in '82 when Chronic Town came out.
Okay. Love the EP, right? That'd be the EP?
Yeah. It's like one of the greatest records that ever existed. Came out 40 years ago last month.
Isn't Pretty Persuasion on there?
No, that's on Reckoning.
Okay. All right.
But you're a gentleman of the streaming era, so you go by songs. Whereas to me, it's all like if somebody said, "What's your favorite Zeppelin?" I would say side 3 of Physical Graffiti.
Side 3, okay,
which is still, or disc 2 to CD people.
Because you didn't just put it on and listen to one song on the side.
No,
listen
man.
to the whole thing, right?
No, you put on the Needle, and then you got into whatever kind of 70s teenage mayhem you were going to get into. That's probably not suitable for the broadcast here, but it's
we want to hear it.
Yeah, well, I love my job and all of them. And anyway, so so they are really like. But by the time I saw them in '82, they were already like a road dog. A touring machine.
Yes.
I mean, R.E.M. built their career in still the best way that one can build it, which is by
playing
over. You guys do this, right?
That's exactly what we do.
I'm impressed. Every time I look at your social media, your website, or you tour a lot dates online. I don't know if you have a website or not. You probably do, of course.
Yes, sir.
But I would see it on social media probably that you're touring all the time, and it's great.
Thanks.
And much like R.E.M., much like the Drive-By Truckers, much like Mercyland, you guys are not above playing anywhere. If there's people there, we'll play.
Yes,
which is the way. So anyway, I saw them then, and it just blew my mind. And I had moved up here to go to journalism school.
Okay.
And
how deep was the interest in journalism at that point? Were you like
very?
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote for the high school newspaper, and I had a knack for it. I like it, and I had interned in Atlanta. Yeah, again, the journalism and the rock and roll and the sports are going to get crossed up. And I was an intern at a news talk station in Atlanta, WGST, and their sports guy was a great guy, and he took me under his wing, and I kind of became like the intern for their department, and his name is Brad Nessler, and he's now Mr. CBS College Football.
Wow, okay.
He is
the voice of time.
And he was a great guy, and he was smart. He encouraged me. You go to journalism school, you could do this kind of job.
So you were doing that before you even got to college?
Yeah. And,
the year before?
Well, I was senior in high school.
Yeah.
And then I would still pick up work for him when I was up here. It's like I'm like a townie rocker, but I'm also like covering Charles Barkley's first college basketball game in Athens, and I got a call in my dorm. It's like, hey, Dominique's turning pro. Could you go to the thing before butt smear, whatever it was, and Claude Felton's having a press conference,
Okay.
So,
see, I didn't know that you ever I knew that you were journalism, but I never. I assumed you came here from music, and journalism was the closest thing you could get.
The music thing was like a tiny thing here. I mean, there was a handful of local bands.
Exactly.
And it just happened, it seems bigger because the quality level was so high.
Okay.
That people still love, the re-releases and playing again of like Pylon and Love Tracker, people are stoked. Yeah. I mean, if R.E.M. played Sanford Stadium, they'd sell it out.
Immediately. You know what I mean? Be sick.
And there's others, just like a cool creative scene. So I come up here, I am getting my feet wet, going to college, and then, I played music since I was a kid, my whole life.
Like bands?
Yes,
Okay.
I played for the first time I played in a band and made money. I was 12 years old.
Wow.
And my
That's
band,
an early start.
My band, I was in 7th grade, and these other 3 guys were in 8th grade. And we played Stacey O'Brien's not a keg party. Sorry, she was in 8th grade. It was her family's party at their farm. It wasn't a keg. It wasn't a kegger. I just totally made that up.
A fictional story.
We played Stacey O'Brien's party, and we each got paid $10.
Let's go.
We made an album, and that I recorded on a 1/4-inch 4-track all tube tape machine, and then I had them duplicated onto cassettes.
Okay.
And took orders.
Yeah.
And sold them at school for exactly what they cost me, which was $3.12 each. I should have just. I mean, it didn't occur to me to make a profit.
Yeah, that didn't cross your mind.
And so my teacher, Miss Alexandra, when we got them made, she said, "David, would you like to play your cassette in class?" And so I did. And then later that summer, I was walking down to the pool with Paul Creedon, and I was lamenting the fact that I still had so many cassettes left over. Now I'm glad I do, because I've got a little stash of them.
Dude.
And it's anyway, I was lamenting to him that it's like, man, all these people said they were going to buy them, and a lot of them didn't. And I learned one of the greatest lessons of the music business, which is 13-year-old Paul Creedon told me, "Barbie, the worst mistake you ever made is letting people hear that tape before you got the money."
That's a good one. That was a life lesson for the ages.
Yeah. It's like, that's why we release singles before the album is out. It's like a teaser.
Yes. Yeah. The curiosity had been filled already.
Right.
Interesting.
So anyway, I had moved to Athens to go to school, and once I saw that, saw R.E.M. play down at the I&I. Oconee Street, where the Hodgson Oil building is. If you went down to where the fork is by Farmers, and you turn right, and there's this big, like, beige kind of brick complex.
Yeah.
On the right, huge warehouse, and there's a parking lot down below, a UGA parking lot, and the hill goes up to Mitchell Street back on the back side of North Campus.
They just played there?
So, pardon me?
They just played there? It wasn't a venue?
It was a venue. Yeah, it was a venue.
Gotcha,
Iggy Pop played there, all kinds of cool stuff went on there. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I saw R.E.M. play there, and then I saw, and around maybe right before that, right after that, right around the same time, I saw my first show at the 40 Watt, which was in its first time at West Clayton Street, where Caledonia was.
Yes, okay.
Right, because it was upstairs College Square, across the street, upstairs College Square.
Down there.
West Clayton Street, East Broad, West Clayton, where it is now.
Current location. Sweet.
So East Clayton 1, I went there to see the Little Tigers.
Little Tigers.
And who were a great local band. And the reason I went was I saw a picture in the red and black of this band, and I recognized the bass player, Evan Lieberman. And I knew him because when me and the guitar player from my 7th, 8th grade band, he was a real hot shot. He was older than me.
Okay.
And he started playing with these guys that were 16 or 17.
Yeah.
And so they needed a drummer.
Okay.
And he's like, "I got a drummer." And I don't think they were expecting essentially like a little boy to be their drummer.
Yeah. A 12-year-old.
And it's funny, I just reacquired about 5 years ago. I have them at Chase Park, my drum kit that I owned in those days.
Yeah, right. Pearl, right?
I sold them to get pearls. It's a 1968 Root Beer Sparkle Slingerland kit. It's an amazing drum kit.
You had it in there. You were using it last time. I used it. I was like, wow, that's incredible. Kit. Yeah.
So, but one of the older, like 16, 17-year-old guys he played with was Evan. And so I go to this band practice. And this is literally like Dazed and Confused. It's about the same year, too, that I quit. I just finished playing Little League, and now I'm like hanging out with these teenagers, and they like drink fortified wine and smoke pot and eat flavored potato chips and make out with girls, none of which went on at my house.
Of course. A little young.
And they like Blue Oyster Cult, Agents of Fortune is what they'd be listening to. And it was almost like these guys never had parents. There's no adults anywhere ever. It's very like 70s sitcom where they're just these like teenagers that live in the basement in a ranch house in a suburb and smoke weed and listen to The Revenge of the Vera Gemini. And so I see Evan's picture in the red and black, and I was like, I'm discovering that the B-52s were here, and this amazing R.E.M. band is here.
Maybe I need to go see some bands.
So I go to the 40 Watt, found it, and as soon as I walked in the door, and this would have been about 82, was like, these are my people. It's the first time in my life I've ever walked into something and I saw a group of people and was still, when you're a teenager, a lot of times I'm a friendly person. I had friends with all kinds of people in high school. The freaks, the jocks, the preppy kids, the math people, whatever.
You seem to be like
the
a
band
chameleon.
people.
You know, you can fit in with whoever.
I love
right?
all the people.
Yeah,
You know, it's like I'm not part of any group necessarily, but when I first walked into the 40 Watt and saw the collection of the Athens music scene, as it were, at that time, first off, I recognized these like oddballs I'd seen in the dorms, and I would see them in a little pack, and it's like, where do they go? What do they do? My roommate and I used to call them the Reed airplane because we lived on the Reed quad and the Jefferson airplane, like a little pack of people. And it's like these are people from the 60s. Like, what are they doing? Where did they go? Can we be friends? And I go to, and I see them all at this show, and I'm just like, this is where the cool people go. And that would have been about 82. And so I played in several bands. I played in a band with guys I'd gone to high school with called the Legion for a couple of years. And I just had this revelation in the probably early 85. I saw the Barbecue Killers play at the Uptown.
Yeah, I have a question for you about those.
Yeah, we'll talk about them.
For sure. Because you have some sort of legacy with them, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know exactly what.
Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, I was at the show at the Uptown, but I'm playing in this band, and I'm just playing with like other people here and there. You know, classic Athens play with a ton of people. Yeah. And the 40 Watts moved up to Broad Street now, and I'm going to both the Uptown Lounge and the 40 Watt all the time. Yeah. And any cool record that came out, I'm going up to the Wuxtry, which was the little bitty corner one where they have the used stereos now, was the whole store.
The little bitty side.
And it's like I knew every record in the stacks there.
Really?
And but I had this revelation that was, we had just played, the Legion had just played at the 688.
Okay.
And I just had, which was an amazing club in downtown Atlanta. And I just had this idea that it's like, those guys, I'm still friends with them. I love them. They're great. Yeah, we've been friends since we were kids.
That's incredible.
And I liked playing with them, but I was aware, it's like when I listen to our recordings and I listen to the records I love, they are two different things.
Yes, sonically you mean?
And just everything, just a disconnect between what I was doing and what I would listen to in my spare time.
Gotcha.
And then just realized, like, I need to be in a band that makes the sounds I hear in my head.
Gotcha.
And then I saw the Barbecue Killers and was just completely floored that Laura Carter, there's two great Laura Carters in the history of Athens music, Barbecue Killers Laura Carter and Laura Carter of Elf Power.
Okay.
For our purposes, I'm talking about Barbecue Killer Laura Carter.
And she sang, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is just like one of the just a rock and roll icon, you know. And anyway, and we were, you know, we'd gotten really friendly, and then but just seeing them play this show at the Uptown that was packed, and it's she came on stage in this little wooden cage that she could like walk in, but it was like hung down over her body, and it was just like, that's badass.
Yeah, it's like, what is happening?
And it's just in command and just totally like intense and totally committed to what they were doing, all of them. And so I knew, it was like, I need to start my own band, and I need to not be embarrassed of my own singing. Like, I'm not a conventionally great singer, but I mean it when it comes out of my mouth.
Delivery kind of stuff.
And so, because most of the stuff I really love is the same way.
Yeah.
You know, John Lennon and Mick Jagger aren't Frank Sinatra. They're phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right.
Rock and roll.
Yeah. D. Boone and Mike Watt, you know, aren't Perry Como, but the Minutemen, to me, Double Nickels and the Dime is the greatest record of the 80s. And it's the Physical Graffiti or, you know, the White Album, Sgt. Pepper Revolver of its time.
Okay.
And I will stand by that comment. It's like it's all kinds of, it's its own thing. Well, that's a different tangent.
Different podcast.
But, so there was two guys that I wanted to play with more than anything. One of them was Fashion Battery's drummer, Harry Joyner, and the other was the briefly the Kilkenny Cats guitarist, Mark Craig.
Okay.
He had this really spare style that reminded me of Paul Weller with the Jam, or like 60s Pete Townsend.
Yeah.
And Harry was like the modern reincarnation of Keith Moon.
Really?
And it was just like, I want to play with those two guys.
And you'd seen them in their other bands, right? And it was like you scouted it out.
I just laid there like my cat in the weeds waiting on a squirrel to come by. And I'll be damned if all the harmonic convergence. I quit the Legion. I saw that Barbecue Killers show, and both those dudes quit their bands.
No way.
And I was like, do you guys want to jam? And they came over to my house with Kenny Agar, who still lives in Athens. He was the singer in Band 37, and the four of us just jammed one night.
Okay.
I lived over on Grady Street in houses that were like $100 a bedroom then, and now probably cost $1 million. Thanks, commercial real estate people. And that does not need to be edited out. And,
for sure can stay.
Yeah, for sure. It's an official position.
Stand by it.
And anyway, we jammed. We played like, Who covers and Beatles songs and whatever. And it was just like, man, this feels great.
Yeah.
And I love Kenny. He's a great guy, but it was obvious I got my own thing
going on. Okay. And Kenny was wanting to sing, is that right?
Well, we just jammed one time, and it felt good, but it's like, I'm starting my own band, I'm going to be the singer. And he had his own band, he's a singer already anyway. So me and Harry and Mark started Mercyland.
Okay. And what year round is this?
This is 85.
Okay.
We played jammed in the fall of 85, because I'd been knocking around playing in bands the whole time I was in school.
Yeah.
But it was just like, you play parties, you play the 40 Watt, you play the Uptown. I would go to Atlanta and play 688. I mean, I had a real thing going.
Yeah.
It's like the Legion was a good band, and they're good dudes, and
good
we
following
had
and everything.
And not bad, pretty good.
Okay.
We could pull 100 people out to a show.
Well, that's not great. Was it scary to leave that band though? Was it like, all right, what if this is, you come to Athens, you never know if it's going to find another one. But
oh yeah, it's always scary to pull your pitcher out of the game if you don't know who's coming in next.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, it's like, do you really want to break up with her or him because you don't know what you're going to... It's like,
you don't know,
but there's this great sense of freedom, and I just knew, but I knew it's like, I've got my own thing that I want to do.
Yes. Okay.
And I want to walk on stage in a dark, crowded club and have people be like excited, hell yes, when your band walks on the stage.
Yes.
That's what I want. I wanted to be like this stuff that I went to see all the time.
Yes.
I would go to see these touring bands. I'd go see the Replacements and Husker Du. And it's like, I want to be in a band like that.
Yes.
That is like, and that is also like emotionally committed both within the music and to the life.
Exactly. Yeah, like all in.
Like all in.
Like you can tell when you're playing with guys that aren't all in.
Right.
It's like so obvious. Yeah.
Lifers and mugs, music until graduation.
Exactly. Yeah,
and so
I like that. Whoa.
So
I need to write that down.
Yeah, I've never been a mug. I've been a lifer my whole life.
Some people you either are the music industry or you're in the industry for a little while,
Right.
And you can tell.
Yeah.
So I get what you mean. It's like an indescribable feeling to be like, all right, I want to find the guys that are trying to run this shit up. You know what I mean? Like, go.
Right.
Agreed?
Agree, 100%.
Yeah.
So they were both gone for the summer. Mark was, might have been in school or something, and Harry worked in like his dad was in some kind of shipping business, but he had a summer that involved working in like a meat packing plant or a slaughterhouse or something in Europe somewhere.
So he was itching to play some tunes.
Yeah, and came back not eating any meat for a while because I can't do it. But anyway, so they came back and I would practice every day after school.
Yeah, every day.
And we practiced at the downtown mini storage at the corner of Pulaski and Broad, where Pulaski dead ends into Broad Street, and there's people selling game day merch out there. Okay, there used to be these little mini warehouses back there, and you could rent one, like a 10 by 12 concrete space, including electric power, for $30 a month.
What?
From this lady, Dot McGuffey.
I spent that at Lucy's Space last time I was there.
I mean, people spend that on O-bombs downtown every Friday night. We were paying $30 a month for practice space, including electricity.
Oh, my
And from Mrs. McGuffey. And so we practiced for a couple of weeks, and it's like Is-Ought Gap was playing a show, another legendary early 80s Athens band.
What was the name of that?
Is-Ought Gap.
That's one I've never heard of.
And they said, do you guys want to open up for us? And we said, sure. So we played for them, and this is a Thursday night. We played about 150 people, and we played all 8 of my songs and 2 covers.
Okay.
And the covers were,
what were they?
I mean, this is like a punk rock band, but our 2 covers were Gordon Lightfoot, Sundown, and To Sir With Love by Lulu. I love both those songs.
I don't think I know either of them. Desert Alone.
Wow.
Should I
man.
know that one?
No, that's a deep cut. But it was a hit in the 60s.
on.
But when you hear this like maudlin like string track,
I'm writing it
those
down.
schoolgirl days, the theme song to a Sidney Poitier movie.
Did you guys rock it up a bit, I guess? Like delivery?
No, probably no. Did not. It's more just like an odd thing. Basically, it's one of those things where when I was in Mercyland, it's the first time in my life I think I developed the feeling that we can do anything we want to because we're Mercyland. It was like being in a gang, minus violence, and like a jovial gang. And so 2 weeks later, we play this show and it's good. And we got a little buzz.
Okay.
And it's like, and you got to remember it's a smaller scene. There's only 2 clubs.
How many bands do you think? 10?
More than that.
More
I'm
than
thinking
that?
30 or so by this point. You know, I guess it would be a guess.
Okay.
And then Dream So Real, who was like a big local band. There was like 4 big local bands that weren't R.E.M. or the B-52s. You know, that were on
the way up, kind of.
Love Tractor, the Squalls, Kilkenny Cats, and Dream So Real. Pylon was already gone.
Gotcha.
The initial retirement. They've been like Pylon's career is a bit Napoleonic, where like they were gone and then they came back for a little while. But now, unlike Napoleon, they're back again, which is awesome because I love them.
I hear they're reissuing stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, it's that Pylon box set, incredible. So anyway, we played for Dream So Real at the 40 Watt down on Broad Street on a Friday night, and we played to about 300 people.
Woo!
And then our third show, we opened for the Red Hot Chili Peppers at UGA to like 1,000 people in the basement.
I saw the graphic for that. You remember that? It says Stegman?
In the Tate Center.
Tate Center,
in the basement of the Tate Center. There was no theater yet.
Oh, wow.
So, and at that point, we had it going on. And so, but after that first show, Harry, who's a smart guy, had said, let's go record 3 songs at John Keene's studio. So we went over there. It was half inch 8-track. Went over there and recorded 3 songs. I still have the receipt. We recorded and mixed 3 songs in like 2 hours. But we had like 8 songs and played them after school 5 days a week over and over for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it was funny because it's like, John's like, oh, do you guys want to do another take? And it's like, well, why?
What for?
It's like, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then we, like 3 months later, this is like a smart thing we did as opposed to like the litany of dumb things that I have done and continue to do. Yeah. But every few months we'd go to the studio and record 3 new songs.
Okay.
And so
just to like keep your form going, or just because you had them?
Just because we had them and we could record them, and they're new and you're excited about them and they're fresh.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, I mean, sometimes it'd be like, I'd write a new song and Harry's like, that one's great, let's go record. So we'd call John and we'd book but it wasn't like this huge production that cost thousands of dollars because it's like we were efficient and fast.
Gotcha.
And so, but by the spring of '86, we really had it going on, and we were like packing out 300, 400 people at the Uptown in a much smaller town, right? Much smaller. I mean, we had people from the Uptown, which is kind of where Tweed is over on. It used to be that Copper Creek.
I thought that Uptown was Caledonia at one point, right?
No.
Okay. I'm mistaken.
No, the Uptown was always up in Washington. It had been the Paris Adult Theater. We had a real dirty movie theater in downtown Athens in the '80s, early '80s, and we were like. Had people like lined up down to the Nowhere Bar, around the corner. And so it's like 6 months after having a band, and it's like, this is for real. Yeah. We need to make records and go on tour. Okay. And then Mark went to grad school in Germany. He's gone for the summer, and then he came back and it's like, I don't want to do this.
No.
He just wasn't committed, so he quit. And but the first year was a really, really exciting time.
Yeah. How many shows do you guys think you played like off the bat? Because I assume you just went to it, right?
Well, we did, but it was like, it was a little different, whereas you wouldn't be playing like shows all the time. It's like you'd space it out. Okay. I mean, other than that initial run where you played once every couple of weeks, it's like what we wanted to play was sold out shows.
Yeah, pack it out.
So we would play about once a month. In Athens.
Gotcha.
And then would go played a few shows in Atlanta, and then went up to Durham, North Carolina, and played. This is so random. A friend of mine was going to Duke, and we played a frat party opening for a reggae band, and but they knew that like the kids in the frat or whatever knew that like Athens is cool. This band's from there. We'll get them.
It had that legacy already in 86-ish?
Oh, God almighty. It had the legacy in like 78.
Really?
I mean, the B-52s played like 2 shows and went to New York and blew people's minds.
Yeah.
Pylon then went to New York and blew. I mean, it was amazing. Like, when it already had a real buzz.
Okay.
So it's funny, by like 86 or 87, there was a guy who had this like punk label in DC who wanted to come make an Athens band compilation called Against the Backlash, because Athens was had such a reputation. He was like, well, there's already kind of backlash against it. That's when you know you've got something going on.
Okay.
But so that first year, but the second year we really got this other guy, Andrew Donaldson, who was and is again the guitar player in the reformed Mercyland.
Woo!
And
That's exciting.
He was in a band called Terracotta Suede, and he had cool songs and was a cool guy, and like me, he loved the Minutemen. Yeah. And so we had a bunch of, when Mark quit, I mean, we had everybody that any kind of free wheeling guitar player in Athens wanted the job.
Okay.
And so, but Andrew was just the right vibe, man.
Yeah,
he was
worked.
like less experienced and looser, but he just like, we loved the same music, and he also wasn't as bound in by some kind of genre. Okay. There are other people that had studied and learned all the songs perfectly, but it was like he was just his own thing, and he was like a smart guy who like read books and so
somebody you want to hang out with, maybe.
Yeah. So and which was the right move, because it was we were able to grow creatively from there.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's probably, I released the first 2 ever Athens band compilations. One was on cassette only, called Proud of Me Gluttony. And that would have been the very first Mercyland recording. So I must have made that thing in like early 86. And then in the fall of 86, we released a 4-song, 4-band vinyl compilation called Some. That
which 4 bands?
Barbecue Killers, Eat America, Time Toy, and Mercyland.
Okay.
And that was our first kind of tour, because we booked a disastrous 4-show
I've read about
tour.
This one. In Cool Town, the book?
Yeah.
I believe I read a little bit about
this.
Beth,
I think Grace Hale might have been on that tour.
Yeah.
There's about 40 people on it. Yeah, you
Isn't
can read
this
about
the one
that
where
in the
you
book.
cut out the little things that like about how many tickets y'all had done, or am I mistaken? I think it's different. Like you guys sent letters to booking to.
Oh no, that's
venues?
later when my fictitious press kit.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's real too.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah, so but we booked this tour with like 40 people in a bus, and made these like hand-made record covers.
Okay,
and it was a really super fun disaster.
Yeah,
and we had to play like 3 or 4 shows at the 40 Watt to make enough money to pay the bus company back.
Really?
And Michael Stipe said he would play one of the shows and we could use his name on the poster.
Okay.
Basically, he knew the jam we were in. And R.E.M. by this point, like 85, 86, it's like, it was 86, because the summer of 86, my girlfriend and I hand distributed the Proud of Me Gluttony cassette around America. I had a little pickup truck with a camper cap on it. We put a mattress between the wheel wells and basically drove to California, and then went down into Mexico, and then drove up the coast to Seattle and went all the way across. We made it all the way to Minneapolis about 6 or 7 weeks in before we realized it's like, okay, we've got like $80 left, and so now it's time to go home.
And you were just delivering the cassettes to record
stores,
record stores,
people at labels, and bands would see playing, and just anybody. We hand distributed. That was my distribution system.
Wild. That didn't seem nuts at the time to you? Like, doesn't it seem a little crazy in hindsight? Like, fuck it. We made a record. Let's go fucking take it all the way there.
It was just, but I was just into. I'm always. I've never totally gotten over loving living a bit like a pirate.
Yeah.
Where, and this is part of my love of touring, but even then it's like, we went to up through Alabama to Memphis, went to Graceland, then went to Oklahoma. We knew somebody that worked in a record store and stayed with her for a few days, and then went down to Amarillo, Texas, where another guy worked in a record store and made some cool music, and then we just kind of work our way through the Southwest and then San Diego and L.A. and up to San Francisco and just go to the Grand Canyon. Went to the campground that's all Flintstones themed. I saw some pretty awesome pictures from that, like a Fred Flintstone cutout you can stick your head through and get your picture made.
Iconic,
right? Yeah.
Well, so it seems like you guys just used to do
living
stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
exactly. People are too cautious, man. Live the life, roll the dice.
Like the 40-person tour. When I read about that in Cool Town, I was like, it seems like blasphemous, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems like such a wild idea.
It is a wild idea.
So much fun. Like, I bet it was great, yeah?
It's like you're young, and I told a student this morning who was a little freaked about her employment prospects, and I asked her a few questions, which were, how many children are you supporting now? Yeah. Oh, none. How many deadbeat ex-husbands do you have? How many house payments are you making? It's like, roll the dice, sister. Yeah. Get after it. Live the life.
Yeah, you can do all that shit later.
You're young and you're single. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So that was the first compilation. The second one, the Sum compilation, was actually on vinyl. Put that out. And then what I really wanted to do was do Mercyland tour. And so I had graduated in March of '86. And once I got into rock and roll and realized I'm not writing for the newspaper, I kind of built my own M-Bus program at UGA.
Okay, how so? What do you mean by that?
I was a radio, TV, and film production major, which is now known as Entertainment and Media Studies.
Yes, big major now.
My minors had a split minor. You used to be able to do this. You could have half the hours for each was English for reading and writing lyrics, and music.
Yeah.
And there's a guy named Bill Ramal who produced like doo-wop records in the early 60s. And I mean, this guy started playing sax on rock and roll records in the late 50s, like right when it happened in New York City, and then produced doo-wop records. And then he's down on his luck. And then he was like in the hippie era. And then he made compilations they sold on TV. He's a real old school music business hustler.
Okay.
And he taught these freestanding elective music business classes.
Okay.
At UGA that were a music school course listing. And so I took one, and in the first class that we was ever taught here, David Barbe, who's been a successful music attorney in Atlanta for a long time, and JB from Panic and me were three students in the first ever music business class. Isn't that crazy?
There was only three of you guys?
Well, no, there's a whole classroom. The three of us happen to be in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And because Panic and Mercyland started about the same time. Different bands, different scenes, but this is an illustration of how the scene had really grown. I mean, the early 80s, it's all like the art school bands, and it's hard to break in.
Gotcha.
And, I was like jeans, T-shirt, punk rock and roll guy, and the Athens music, everybody else had like poofier hair and smoked clove cigarettes, and I was envious that it's like these people live like bohemian artists in Paris in the 20s. And I just basically kept showing up and going to shows and just standing around until I think I just became part of the woodwork, and people were nice to me.
They just knew the face.
A few people were right away. Who was great to me at the very beginning is Linda Hopper, who's a singer in OOK, was always super sweet to me, and admired her and her bands. And who else was the R.E.M. guys, man?
Yeah.
Peter Buck. Peter Buck's the first person that ever told me about the Replacements, Husker Du, the Minutemen, the Meat Puppets, Richard Thompson, Big Star, and the Velvet Underground.
Was this at Walk Street probably? Or?
No, just like see him around.
Yeah.
And they knew, it's like, and the same with Mike. It's like those guys knew that like, oh, I'm the kid that makes like 4-track cassettes and am at every show. And if R.E.M. played 3 nights in Athens and 2 nights in Atlanta, I'd go to all 5.
Really?
I'd go to. I was going to every kind of rock and roll show I could.
Yeah.
Club rock, arena rock, not so much. But anyway, so in early '87 with Harry and Andrew was when we first booked our first real good tour, and that's what I made the fictitious press kit for.
Yes.
I needed a press kit to book a tour, and we had our demo cassette of our songs we'd been recording periodically with John Keane.
Okay.
And
a legend.
Yeah, deservedly.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
And we had and so I would read all these rock and roll. I mean, I had reviews from like the Creative Loafing in Atlanta and the Red and Black, obviously.
Yeah.
And there was no flagpole yet; that didn't exist.
Little
but there was a
stuff.
thing called Classic City Live. It's like, but I needed better stuff to book shows in other places.
Okay.
So what I did is I took my Grady College of Journalism skills and would go down to Kinko's and would get where they had X-Acto knives and a glue stick, and you'd get the masthead from Maximum Rock and Roll or Splatter or Forced Exposure or any of these like cool punk rock magazines, and then I would just write my own reviews like I would want written about my band, like would be written about like the Buzzcocks or the Clash or something, and
a revolutionary new sound.
And my philosophy was nobody's gonna know.
Yeah,
there's no internet.
Yeah,
I mean,
wild.
It's just like, and I got the idea from baseball.
Okay.
That when Ty Cobb was a minor league player, Ty Cobb desperately wanted to play at a higher level. He was a teenager. And so he wrote letters to the Atlanta paper, to Grantland Rice, the legendary sports editor of the Atlanta Journal in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
Dear Mr. Rice, I've seen this boy Cobb play in Anniston, Alabama. He's quite the ball player. Sincerely, Mr. Johnson, Birmingham, Alabama. He just made it all up. And Grantland Rice then writes a friend who's a scout with the Tigers and said, hey, I keep getting these letters about this kid Cobb in Alabama. You ought to have a look. And he was great. And so I believed my band is great.
Yeah.
Give us a chance.
Yes. And that was how it worked back then more, because I hear like stuff like that people go out on the road for 30 days and not know where they're playing the second half of that. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that way there was a little bit of that, but for us it was like, so we booked, us and the Primates booked a 6-week tour.
Yeah.
Where we never left the Southeast.
Okay.
We were like Jameson Tank. We were playing like every
the tri-state.
It's like the lyrics to ZZ Top, Jesus left Chicago, going from one place to the other, and all points in between. And that's what. And so we booked this tour because my philosophy was, what happens if somebody finds out that you made all this up? It's like, at that point we'll already have the experience. It won't matter.
Yeah,
we'll already be in the loop. So teaching of Bill Ramal, music business class. Once you're in the loop, you're in the loop.
Ooh.
And own your own publishing. And so we were just touring like crazy, and I would bet in the first 9 months of '87, we played the Uptown on Friday night, and then we left to go play in the middle of January, and then by the end of September, so 8.5 months, we had played 100 shows, including our first of several trips that year to New York to play CBGB.
Yeah, legendary.
And and that's Maxwell's awesome. In Hoboken, and the Rat in Boston. Wow. And we were playing killer shows with good bands in other places.
So it kind of worked. Like, was there a lot of like, all right, these guys were faking it, you know what I mean? Or was it you're showing up? Nobody knew. Nobody ever noticed. Knew. That's awesome.
Because we're from a weird part of the country, and they knew that there's like jangly bands in Athens and the original art school things, but like we were a different thing from a part of the country where they knew about but didn't really know anybody.
Gotcha.
So I mean, it's just
different
era.
That's crazy.
Like if I mean, you can't do this anymore because all it's going to take is a quick Google search to be outed as a fraud.
Yeah.
But that didn't exist, and that's crazy. It was very like 19th century style of living.
Okay.
I mean, as well as like pulling up stakes and going, I'm going to California with my cassettes.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a gold miner in San Francisco in 1849.
Same thing.
And the only thing you can ever really count on in your life is your own work ethic.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Everything else is a gamble.
That's the one thing that all the bands that have succeeded have in common.
Yeah.
Work ethic.
The Beatles went to Germany and played 6 hours a night, 6 days a week.
Yep.
The Stones lived Brian and Keith and Mick lived in a cold water flat, and 3 of them in a room together.
Yeah.
It's just how, I mean,
you do it.
How bad do you want to do something?
And bands don't tour like that anymore.
Yeah.
100 shows this year is impressive these days. You know, like you guys did in 8.5 months. That's mad dog.
I had an interesting influence too, because my dad was a big band musician, and I've seen their itineraries in the 50s. They were playing like 340 nights a year, town after town.
How's that even possible? I can't imagine.
No interstates.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
The interstate highway system hadn't been invented yet.
Yes, okay.
It's like driving from Atlanta to Dallas on Broad Street.
Roads. Yeah, back roads.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's and so, but Mercyland touring days, it's all payphones and road maps. And then we had like a Xerox copy sheet of clubs and we just knew. And then you'd like a fanzine in North Carolina wrote a review of the compilation, and I sent the girl a letter.
Okay.
Libby Gast, who was a really cool girl that had a fanzine in Winston-Salem Greensboro, called Rockin' Biscuits, and wrote her and said, "Hi, Libby. I read your review of us. It's really nice. Thank you. Do you know any places we could play? This is my name and my phone number." Okay. And it's and then the Primates went and played a show in Norfolk, and the legendary Norfolk DJ Carol Taylor, had put them on the bill opening for a band that she managed, Waxing Poetics, and then her job at the radio station was doing a Van Halen show, and so they had all these hotel rooms blocked out, and she gave this band gave the Primates one of Van Halen's hotel rooms and just said, they're not going to use them and nobody's going to know.
Yeah.
You guys are cool. What else is going on in Athens? And so they played Carol the Mercyland cassette, and then Carol wrote me a letter and said, I'm Carol Taylor. I work at Singer Management in New York, managing the Smithereens and the Waxing Poetics, and the Primates played me your stuff, and I think it's really great, and we want to talk. And so I did, and then she started, and so Libby told me about the stuff in Greensboro and a few other clubs, and then Carol told me about stuff and said, you should call this guy Mark Thomason in Richmond to book a show, and I can help you get set up at a show in Norfolk. And then I know this other guy over, in Roanoke or wherever in Charlottesville, and it was a very independent grassroots thing. Okay. We knew about the Cat's Cradle, we knew about CBGB, we knew about these other places, but like the network of small town booking, and there's no internet to Google like live music, Greenville, South Carolina. You ask bands like, where do you play? Yeah. Okay. And then you'd ask somebody, you book a show in Chapel Hill and go, hey, where else should we call? Like, it's not going to compete with your show. It's like, oh, do you know about the Milestone in Charlotte? It's like, no. All right, here's their number. Call Bill. Do you know about? And then you'd call there and go, hey, man. Yeah. We're trying to book Southeast, and it's like, we got you in Chapel Hill. Like, where else could we go? Oh, out in Greenville where East Carolina University is, they got some cool stuff out. What's the name of the club? I'll call that guy. Thanks. Interesting. You meet bands and say, hey, if we can come to your town, you can come to Athens and open for us.
We'll trade you.
And so we booked these tours, and man, we were road dogs. Yeah. And so we hit it hard.
I respect that.
And we bought this awful van that about a month or so into owning it, it's like it just died.
Yeah.
And then, so what we were touring in was, I had a 1982 Datsun King Cab pickup. Datsun's the thing before Nissan.
Okay.
And if you can imagine the smallest Nissan truck they make, imagine if the Frontier had had a baby.
What? A tiny thing?
I mean, you got your computer there.
I had a Frontier. That was my first truck.
Okay, so before that, in the early 80s, and Datsun had made this thing, and they had come up with this insane idea called the King Cab. It's a pickup truck that doesn't just have a front seat. It has the little half jumper seat in it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You gotta lean forward. It's now known as the Access Cab.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay.
And they were like this little bitty truck that looks like one of like the trucks like the landscapers use at UGA. So I had one of those with a camper cap on it. Okay. And so sometimes we would tour with that in a trailer. Yeah. Other times we toured with three of us plus a fourth person to psychic foil. We always called the roadie.
Merch guy.
And in this little bitty truck, and everybody could bring one like school-sized backpack. Oh wow! And those got bungee corded behind the driver. One person sat in the troll seat behind the passenger, and the fourth person just sat in the truck bed. And
is it one of the sideways seats in the back? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! No!
You don't think we wanted to do it very badly?
Oh, I bet you guys loved it.
We're living the life. Yeah. And so we did. The highlight of the summer, though, was we played this tour. We had a 3-week tour booked.
Okay.
That started in Augusta, and was booked at this place called the DMZ by these two brothers, DDA and Coco Rubio. And Coco,
I know Coco.
You know
he
Coco.
Booked Soul Bar. He booked us at Soul
Of
Bar.
course he does.
Yep, legend.
Before Coco was a legend that had the Soul Bar, he was a guy who was about 19 who booked a Mercyland Barbecue Killers show at this abandoned warehouse in Augusta. Oh, I've known that guy since 1987.
That's crazy. I've had one of my best shows ever at Soul Bar. He's
love that guy.
Jason too. Do you know Jason?
Of course, I've recorded his bands. Yeah,
really?
I've got books of his poetry.
That's wonderful.
But so this is the network of people. The tour started there, and this began the era of us saying we don't take days off.
Ooh,
if we don't have a show, we'll just show up and play. So we played the DMC in Augusta, and the next day we played at a gazebo at the Julian C. Smith Park Julian C. Smith gazebo at a park in Augusta, just outside.
Just play it.
And we took this guy Brian Crane with us, who ironically his dad's the one that sold us the shitty van. And but the truck was I got rear-ended on the 4th of July. The tour started on the 7th. Coming back from before 316 was cut all the way through. We were coming back 29, and Amy and I were going to get some barbecue, and we stopped, and these two guys in a Scirocco rear-ended us and just destroyed their car and just bent the bumper down on my truck. And so Drew Wilbur, the singer in Eat America, was in my driveway on Cobb Street trying to weld my bumper back together. Yeah. And this tan van pulls up next to the driveway, and it's Vic Chestnut, his handicap van.
No way.
And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm kind of sizing up the van. I was like, "Drew's welding the bumper back on so we can go on tour. We're leaving later today." And I look at Vic in his van, and I'm like, "What are you doing?"
What are you doing right now?
Nothing. Like, do you want to go on vacation for 3 weeks? Yeah. And we'll pay all your expenses. And he said, yeah. So he went home and got a backpack and an acoustic guitar.
I didn't know you guys did a run together.
Oh, yeah.
Did he play too? No.
I'll tell you. So he did end up playing. So, so Vic and this guy Brian Crane and the three of us, Harry and Andrew and me, go on this 3-week tour where if we had a day off, we're playing in Greenville, North Carolina, and it's like, all right, we're free tomorrow. Hey, hope everybody's having a good time tonight. This is might have been the last time we could play the club in Greenville because Laura, we had played there with the Barbecue Killers, and she was trying to break a guitar, and it ended up smashing a hole in the floor of the stage. And these guys in this local band, Slurpee, if you ever play at the Poorhouse in Raleigh, their front of house sound man, Jack Kane, was the guy who he and his bandmate raised money from bar patrons to pay for the cost of the floor so the show could go on.
Really?
But they wouldn't book us anymore after this.
I believe that.
So anyway, Vic Kane was our driver. And like we'd go to Greenville, we'd play the club, and then they'd say, who wants to have a party? We'd just brought an extra guitar amp and an SM57 and a mic stand and a cable with us, and we'd just sing into that. And it's like, we'll play your keg party. If you'll get your friends and buy beer, we'll play.
Yeah, we'll play.
We played a Sandinista rally in a public park with a piñata of Oliver North. We played this punk rock house party also in Norfolk the same day. 2-a-days, like high school football practice. And had... in a bedroom of this, or a living room of this little wooden frame house with about 50 hardcore scene kids crammed in there, and it was so hot that people were like wiping steam off the window like a shower. And we, because Porn Orchard, who is from here, played the same thing. I remember seeing Curtis Pernice, who still lives here and plays music and works at the Grid. I remember seeing him look through the window from outside.
No way.
But it was 100 degrees every single day. And we played every day for 3 weeks, and we're sleeping in the van. And Vic, so we played. So one of our we had a show book, and we just like we'd show up at like a college campus and find the quad, and we're just like we're gonna set up and play until the cops run us off.
That's wild.
So we're doing this one day, and we get Vic. Me and Brian set up the gear. Harry and Andrew go to the college radio station to announce there's going to be a show on the quad in like 20 minutes.
Gotcha.
And then we set up, and Vic is like, can I play a couple songs first? And I was like, yeah, man, that'd be great. So he played. This is before he had any records.
Yeah.
And he played some of the songs that wound up being on Little, his first album.
Really?
And it was like, I mean, we'd heard the Lottie Dawes, his band, before. You know, we were all friends, and Andrew and Vic were roommates. But it was jaw-dropping to realize this guy, like, we're all shitty songwriters compared to this guy.
Yeah, okay.
Vic is the real deal, man.
Master. Yeah.
He's a keen observer of human nature and a poet.
Yeah.
And so a couple nights later, we're in Greensboro playing the basement of this club in the basement of a Chinese restaurant called the Nightshade. And it was like, man, let our friend open up for us. And there's like a guy in the wheelchair. I was like, yeah, he's an amazing songwriter.
Okay.
And I'm like, hey, Vic, you got to do it again. He's like, oh, I don't know, man. I was like, come on, Vic, come on. This guy's an EV chance, man. Do it. So I talk him into it, and he does it. But he tanked on purpose. He played like 30 minutes of TV themes. He's playing like the theme from Green Acres. And just too much pressure. And the club guy comes over to me and said, this is your friend, the great songwriter. Yeah, thanks for that.
Fuck.
And that's how we'd play somewhere and Vic just like pops up at a party, picks up a guitar and starts to sing, and everybody's completely taken. And then the next line I like pitch it to somebody, and he tanks.
Yeah, real loose cannon.
Yeah, he's the Mr. Snuffleupagus of rock and roll. He's like impossible to pin down. So at the end of this tour, we get home, and it was hard, but to me it's like, that's the most awesome thing I've ever done in my life.
I bet, man.
And Harry had it.
He was over it?
He was going to quit.
Yeah.
And so Andrew and I talked about it, and he's like, man, maybe we should back down the touring.
Okay.
And my reaction was, I'm not backing down anything. I'm stepping on the gas. He's either in or he's out. We're going to do this. And it's like, I think that that he's going to see we've got a future at this music thing, because he really was a great natural talent. I've seen... You know, I hadn't counted, but I think I've probably made about 400 albums.
Whew.
And
that's impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Huge.
It's a lot.
Huge.
I mean, I've never claimed I made 400 great ones, but I've made 400 albums.
Go on.
And I've recorded some great players. But there are two drummers whose natural ability, there's plenty of people that grow into, like Brad Morgan, Easy B, Trucker's drummer. He has morphed into his own world of incredibleness that's unlike any. His feel for music is amazing.
Yeah, the vibe.
But in terms of just somebody being blessed with a gift that you can't teach and you can't learn, there's sometimes you see somebody play something and you're just like, wow. Kyle Spence, who is Kurt Weill's drummer, and before that Harvey Milk's drummer, and before that Fiddlehead's drummer, and the Martians, and me and him have played music, and he's lived in Athens a long time.
Yeah.
I recorded him when he was in high school.
Okay.
But before that, Harry, when I saw him play with Fashion Battery, everybody knew it's like, this guy's better than everybody else.
Yeah.
Not because he could do so much, but because he could do so much, but never had to. He's always playing the song, total song. He's accentuating lyrics with drum fills.
Yeah.
He's dynamically building. And if it's time for it to explode, it's like he's Keith Moon or John Bonham.
He's
it's
ready.
Nuts how good he was.
You can tell when those guys that are there holding back, it's like, all right, these guys got it.
And so I was like, there's no way he's going to quit. And so I just we're going to tour even more. So we booked another tour up the East Coast, going to CB's and the Rat.
Well, I question for you on that before you keep going. Sorry, don't lose your thought or anything. But like, how at this point is it? What makes you guys want to play every day? Like that just seems like nuts, even.
Because what are we going to do if we don't?
Yeah.
It's like the guys that played the Negro Leagues. You know, they played baseball year round. I've been reading this biography of Oscar Charleston, who is probably one of the 5 greatest baseball players in the history of professional baseball, but nobody knows who he is because he's a Negro League guy.
Gotcha.
The description of him is the same that you pick white players, white managers that saw them play in the 20s and 30s are like, this guy was like on par with the Babe Ruth or Ty Cobb or anybody we ever saw play. Anyway, because our choice was, you got a day off, what are we going to do? Let's see, we could go to Ryan's and buy a paper and just try and slowly eat so that we can get a whole day's worth of food at the all-you-can-eat buffet. We can sit around somebody's house.
Read a book.
We could drive somewhere.
Yeah.
But, I mean, playing's what we do, man.
Yeah.
Let's play. It's like, you know, I mean, in the same way that I'm no Bible scholar, but let's just say I would imagine that John the Baptist didn't take too many days off. And so I was just a true believer, and I love to play.
And how profitable is it for you guys at this point? Does it matter? Really does.
I've got the little my handwritten spreadsheet notes.
I would love to see that.
It's not profitable.
Yeah, it's not, is it?
Our thing was if we could average... I think that if we could average like $75 a night income, that we could. Now, of course, it's $2-3 to get into a show at the time, you know.
Gotcha.
And I mean, sometimes you do better. Sometimes you play to a bunch of people, make money. Sometimes you're playing to like 4 people on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
But it's like playing's playing.
Playing's playing.
You get better when you play.
Yeah.
And and if you can win over a small audience on a slow night,
it'll translate.
You can. I mean, it's easy to kick ass to a huge adoring crowd.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
I mean, when I was in Sugar, I've played to 50,000 people before, and you know what that is? Easy.
Yeah, really?
Because you walk on stage and everything's set up.
Yeah.
And when you walk on stage, it's like it sounds like a jet airplane.
Yeah.
And you play the first song, and the end is just like explosion. And then I step up to sing one of my songs, and I can look out and see every person I can see is singing.
Oh, wow.
The words to my song.
Can't imagine.
It's incredible. I remember one year on my birthday, Sugar had just released a record, and we were in Edinburgh, Scotland, and playing and starting the song and then turning around to sing and opening my eyes and looking out, and it's like, oh my God, they're pogoing and singing my song. Incredible.
Yeah.
So if you can, but back to reality of Mercyland, if you can pull it off to 10 people, and make true believers.
Yeah.
Drive-by truckers, man. They built their audience by doing this.
Yes.
If I had to make a list of like bands from Athens, it's like of the hardest workers and ranked them in order. Patterson's early Drive-by Truckers days not only would he be number 1, the distance between number 1 and number 2 would be greater than the distance between number 2 and number 30. Wow. Because what I'm talking about doing, they were doing that. The difference is I was in my early 20s and single when he was doing it. He was in his late 30s.
Wow.
Really or mid 30s when he started the Drive-by Truckers.
Yeah.
He was in his early 30s and they're living like this.
Oh, wow.
He's washing dishes, and when he comes home to Athens, but Harry couldn't take it. So we played this last tour. And we get home, and he's like, "Okay, we quit." So we went to John Keene's like we would do. We're like, we should record what we do before we call it good.
Gotcha.
And we recorded 40 songs in 3.5 hours, like we're playing a show.
Okay.
It's there is a song on this record that comes. So next week this record comes out.
I'm excited about it. I like the name. We never lost a single game. That's exciting. I just think that's a cool name.
And I'll send you a link to it.
Please, I want to hear it.
We have this press link. You count as press of the album. And there's a couple of singles that are out now.
I love them, man.
Well, thank you.
I think Freight Truck's my favorite.
Thank you.
It's like got that like lighthearted vibe almost, but still a rock song, like rocking. I don't know how to describe it.
Well, Mercyland became its own thing. Harry quitting, playing with Harry was one of the greatest experiences of my life to that point. Harry quitting was the greatest thing that happened to our band.
Okay.
Not because I don't love him and not because he's not great, and I love what we did together. But after we had about 3 months where I moped and played in the guitar in the Barbecue Killers. They said, well, Mercyland broke up. Why don't you join the Barbecue Killers? We'll take a second guitar. And there's like I saw this somewhere on my base, like all these years of press clippings and one of real ones. Yeah. And there's one from the early Flagpole or the Red and Black. It talks about the Barbecue Killers adding me as a guitarist. And they asked me what I thought about it. And I said, well, now we'll have 2 guitarists just like the Stones. And because I played bass and Mercyland and play guitar with the Killers. Yeah. But anyway, but after about 3 months, it's just like, you know what?
It's not your thing.
You're a better band without me.
Gotcha.
And me and Andrew need to do our thing. So we started playing with Joel Suttles, who I'd been friends with since we were in Cub Scouts.
Okay.
And that's when we really became our own thing that was just its own unique, indescribable thing. Like you said, like Freight Truck, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just its own thing.
Yeah, it's like I couldn't put a genre on it maybe almost.
Good. Yeah, because we weren't one. Okay, which in the short term is what ultimately probably helped derail us from, there's all these other bands in Atlanta and Athens that were at that time like leading up to Nirvana or like getting signed and taken off. Yeah. But you know what? Most of them not. I mean, there's some that had amazing careers and are great bands, Driving and Crying, Panic. But a lot of these other ones, long gone. Nobody remembers them. We were doggedly our own thing. Our attitude is we're going to fly up the flagpole and see who salutes it. We're going to do what we love. And if you love it, awesome. And if you don't love it, go find something you do. Yeah. But we're not changing shit for anybody. We're doing what we want to do all the time.
That gives you like that chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, especially when you've been on the road, it's like we're fucking badass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And so that's what we were. We were road, and it's like we'll sleep on a floor. I'll sleep in a truck. I don't care.
Yeah.
And so we, when we started playing with Joel, we hit it just as hard as ever. And so this record that's about to come out, we never lost a single game. One of the songs on it that's going to be the single that comes out the day we release the record, which is September 16th, is called Tough Ass Knives. And it is... It is just, confluence of what it's really like to be in a band, but it's not like we went out and played on the road, or it's not that. It's more like when I was about 12 or 13, my friend Steve Newbern and I always talk about, we're going to graduate high school and we're going to all go to California on motorcycles and we'll have like knives and things. And of course we never did anything. But but it's just like that like bonding of being in a gang, playing on a team, being in a band.
Yeah.
Us against the world. We are our own universe. And so the first line of the song is, we used to play for the Tough Ass Knives. We never lost a single game.
Ooh,
and it's...
well, that gives context for the whole album.
Yeah,
right?
and
cool.
Then the last line of the song is, if you live your life with the tough ass knives, you don't mind when you don't get paid.
Ooh,
and
that's hard.
There are these songs by bands that reference the life of the band themselves.
Okay.
And 3 jump to mind. Minutemen, History Lesson Part 2, which... references them, Watt and D. Boone coming up, and Pedro, and going up to L.A. and seeing punk shows and trying to act like they're heroes. Yeah. And Rolling Stones, Torn and Frayed.
Woo,
Classic.
Classic.
It was on the mixtape at our wedding reception. I love that. It's kind of a weird, depressing song to have, but it's like, I just love that
choice.
song. And then ZZ Top heard it on the X. Do you remember back in 1966? And then, Tough Ass Knives is of that ilk, which is like just like defining the inner spirit of the band. And so when we were looking for album titles, it was like going through lyrics, and it was like, that and I don't know if you've seen the album cover. It's
I have. It's great. You're wearing a 40-watt shirt, drinking the keg beers.
If you look closely, that is a 40-watt Uptown shirt, which is the 40-watt Uptown was the club on Broad Street. Yeah, because it was Uptown.
Yes. And okay, so that's what I'm thinking when I said Uptown in the Caledonia spot.
And then the Where We Are is the Court Tavern in New Brunswick, New Jersey.
Really?
Yeah. And
on the road.
Yeah. And that picture was taken by our psychic foil, Spider, who is a unique an amazing fellow who toured with us, and I hope that Spider comes out on one of these shows. I think he might live in Alabama somewhere. But anyway, so it's just became its own self-defining thing. And, after about 5 years of it, I just realized life's moved on. It's like we had so many near misses with record labels, big and small.
Gotcha.
We could play these cool places, but could not really break through to the next level. Yeah. I was in my mid-20s. I had a baby. And Andrew and Joel were ready to move on their lives, and so we decided in mid-1990, in the middle of an especially unsuccessful week of touring. I mean, the playing was great, but it's like we had played like Kent, Ohio, Toledo, Cleveland, Lexington, Louisville, and finished the week in Nashville. But in the middle of that week, we realized it's like Nashville on Friday night, like 25 people at the Elston Square, which is across from where the Exit Inn used to be. We realized that it's like this 25 people is greater than the total number that we've played to all week.
Oh yeah,
and
tough run.
So we just realized it's like, man, maybe it's time to move on.
Yeah. And this is 5 years into it, right?
Yeah, so we decided to do it and not tell anybody for 6 months.
Okay.
And so what we did for the last 6 months we were a band is we played shows that were really fun. Like, will we go back to New York? Sure.
Yeah.
Will we go play at the beach? Of course. There was a great place to play out on the Outer Banks in Nags Head called the Mex Econo that was a rock and roll club that had a bar with the coldest beer on the earth and fish tacos, and it's across the street from the beach.
Sounds good.
It's arguably the greatest place of all time. And come home, play some frat parties, get paid good cash, and then sold our van to Porn Orchard.
Gotcha.
And then we took all the money and made this album that's coming out next week.
Okay, that's so cool.
And we didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And our manager, Jim Tremaine, shopped the record. But, of course, nobody's going to sign a band that's about to break up.
Yeah.
So what we did is we Sean Curry, Planned Obsolescence Records, put out a 4-song 7-inch that was culled from those recordings.
Okay.
And the week of Valentine's Day, we announced, we're playing Friday night, Valentine's Day, at the 40 Watt, which is where the Caledonia was. We're releasing a record. We'll play in Atlanta the next night, and we're breaking up. We'll see you. And that's it. And we didn't tell anybody except like our, my wife and their girlfriends until the week of the show, and Jim and DeWitt. Nobody else knew. Yeah. And so like 10 people knew, and then the week of the show, it's like, see ya. That's it.
Wow,
and just made it end in this incredibly triumphant moment.
On top.
And then walked away and left it alone. And within a year, I was engineering records at John Keene's and playing bass and sugar.
Really?
And my life totally changed. But being in Mercyland and busting ass and committing to the life is what put me in the position. One of those shows that was a near miss of a record label and an insane drive to get there was a show in Hoboken, New Jersey at Maxwell's that Bob Mould saw us play.
Really?
And only time he ever saw me play.
Yeah.
Before he asked me to be in Sugar.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
it
that's
shaped your whole life in a way, almost. Yeah.
I don't want to go on tour and play to no people. It's like, you don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know who you're going to see. Yeah. When I did a Sunvolt record in 1997, 1998, Sunvolt's manager, Ed Morgan, had booked the brewery in Raleigh that booked Mercyland and liked us and got us a show opening for Soul Asylum. So when I was promoted as a potential producer for Sunvolt record, Ed's like, oh yeah, I know David. Yeah, that guy. It's like, man, those guys would come up here and play. They'd come up here and play to nothing. It's like he's living the life.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
There are so many people like that I encountered at that stage of my life that it's and the bands that we were friends with that were waiting for something to happen to go on tour, we scoffed at them.
Yeah.
It's
I scoff at that now. Honestly.
Yeah, of course you do.
What I mean?
Because once you live the life, ask Patterson if you can ever get him to do this.
I would love to. I'd love to.
Once you're living the life, you'll know, man. Either like Harry, who I'm still friends with, and is a phenomenal drummer and a great guy, smart guy. Yeah. It was just like, I don't think this is the life for me.
Yeah.
For me, it's like Pinocchio or Peter Pan or something. Pirate's life for me. It's like once I was doing it, it's just like, yeah, man, this is the life.
And it's like, that's like the music industry, like you're saying, like all those people that you might have just met one time. Like that's the people that one day is going to put you on their record label or send your single out, or you'll see one day in a bar. And it's like, wow, that's the industry, if that makes sense, right?
Pat Magnarella, who was at Venture Booking in New York, and it was always like, if you guys can ever get a record deal, I will book your band. And of course, we never could get a good enough record deal to justify that. Yeah. Pat has spent the last 30 years as Green Day's manager. Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty solid.
Pretty solid.
Pretty solid.
Frank Riley, who was Pat's business partner at Venture, Frank wound up being Sugar's booking agent. He's a legendary agent. Yeah. There's so many people I encountered in that part of my life. And it's funny how many of them are coming to Atlanta and Athens to see these shows. I've heard from so many people. A lot of people I've talked about in the last hour have I've heard from in the last couple of weeks. So
I'm excited. And what is the dates on these shows? Just so everybody knows?
Friday, September 16th at the 529 in Atlanta.
Okay.
And then Saturday the 17th. And they're early shows. The one in Atlanta is super early because, like so many venues post-COVID, it's like they need to book. If we're going to play early, they got to book 2 shows. So the Atlanta show is like doors 5, opener 6, Mercyland at 7:30.
Okay.
The Athens show is doors 7.
Okay.
Nuclear Tourism.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah.
They're great. I didn't know they were on the bill. That's fantastic.
Well, they are now. It was basically Nancy, and then basically they realized they had a conflict and couldn't do it. And so Nuclear Tourism, and frankly, I wanted to make sure, like when I was in Mercyland, what we wanted is bigger bands to just give us a shot on your shows. And so when we had, it was going to be us with Elf Power as direct support, which is what it is at 40 Watt.
Okay,
But
gotcha.
like for the third slot, the opener, it's like, all these cool bands who are, more established, but he wanted to do it because they like Mercyland, remember from back in the day or whatever, was just like, you know what? We're going to find a young band
give them
that's hungry.
They can put it on their EPK, stuff like that.
And also give some guys in their early 20s a chance to blow everybody else off the stage.
Yeah.
Because if I was them, that's what I'd want to do.
Tourism ain't no joke, man.
I know.
They're
that's
good.
why I want them to motivate the older people.
I love that.
I want somebody up there that looks at me and it's like, I'm going to kick that old dude's ass.
I love that.
And then I'm going to do my best to not let that happen.
I love that. I think that's so cool, man. I think
they're a great band. I'm excited.
They're one of the only bands I've asked to come on here, and they're pretty much like, no, I'm good. I was like, that's very punk rocky. I love that.
They're very punk rock. They're living the life, and they're cool.
Yeah.
So they're at 8, then Elf Power, and then Mercyland.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
and then we're going to go from there. We've had offers from other cities to go play, and we're trying to figure out if we can do it because I'm in the middle of making 5 albums right now.
Gotcha.
And I got school, and the other guys have like actual like grown man jobs and stuff to do. You know what I mean? I'm still, everything I do in my life is an extension of what I started doing when I was I mean, and in a lot of ways, I was going to say when I moved to Athens and walked into the little 40 watt, it's all an extension of that.
Yeah.
That's
built for it.
Yeah. The music in my head and seeing R.E.M. at the I&I and the Little Tigers and the 40 watt, like watershed moments in my life.
Yeah. For sure. That makes a lot of sense. Like it's just obvious that you live it, you know what I mean? And all that stuff you're saying about the road, like I just know exactly what you're saying. Like you're either all in or you're not in at all.
Yeah.
You know? And I hate to say it's hard to respect the bands that don't tour, but it's not the same. Like you don't have that same chip on your shoulder. You know
it's
what I mean?
not that hard. It's not that hard. I mean, no, sorry, it's not that hard not to respect it because it's just like if you do it, you do it. It's like whatever you do in life, it's like if you do it, if you won't do it unless you are guaranteed success, I don't see what the point is. It's like the chase is the battle, man.
Yeah.
It's the fun.
That's the fun, the journey.
I'll tell you this, in 2017-18, I released a solo record, and I did some touring with New Madrid, who I love.
Oh, they're great.
And it was, what if we toured where you guys were my band and we opened for you guys? And they're all like totally down. So we did and we called our
like
thing
dim bulbs and $1.75.
Because that it's $1.79.
$1.79. That's
based on me working.
I like those songs. Those are good
Thank
songs.
you.
Yeah,
that was based on me working at Taco Bell when I was 15. I lied about my age to get a job because a cute girl worked there, and I was tired of paying $1.79 to flirt with her for 30 seconds a day at the cash register. And I wanted to get paid $2.90 an hour to hang out with her all day long.
An extra 80 cents.
Yeah. But per hour.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And so anyway, So we had our thing, Inward Dream Ebb, which is a anagram of New Madrid Barbe.
Okay.
And describes the playing. But that record, I play everything myself on that,
Okay, I didn't know
like
that.
dim bulbs, $1.79. Yeah. I'm playing all the instruments, and I did it all on analog tape, so I couldn't fix anything.
Sick. Okay.
It's the rawest shit of all time.
I love it too.
So, but I love back to the Stones, like stuff like Stray Cat Blues that sounds kind of wrong when you hear it. I mean, lyrically, that's a little wrong. But the sound of the music in that song, let's clarify.
Very, very rough.
So, but anyway, so I told one of my friends, I got home and they were just like, you just went on a 3-week tour in a van with like 4 guys that are like in their mid-20s, and you're like staying at people's houses and stuff like that. Yeah. And we had some hotels, but still like staying at people's houses and camping out or whatever. I mean, I was in my early 50s, and my friend was like, how'd that go? Like, I'm going to tell him, it's like, oh, I'm really tired, or I came worn. But the truth is, as I told him, I couldn't believe how easily I just slipped right back into that life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like it never gone, once you've done it.
I wouldn't want to do it 6 months a year.
No more everydays,
but,
everyday shows.
But, yeah. But, I mean, I'd play every day. But it's, I'm playing every day now. It's like I've been, working on my Mercyland stuff and have been trying to get it to where it's like I'm singing and playing songs at a speed, volume level, and singing range of my early 20s. I am,
interesting.
Of 35 years ago.
Yeah. How tough has that been? Relearning the new music.
To relearn, all it took was starting to play it and sing it for like lyrics and music, but to get the feel back of how to do it and how to push.
Yeah. delivery
it's
kind
been
of
a process of getting there. Now it's second nature.
Yeah.
But like last night was going to be an off night because I'm trying to like push my voice as hard as I can 2 nights in a row, and then take a day or two off from it, just like to get in the shape to do these 2 shows, right?
Yeah.
And so, a boxer who never gets punched in practice hasn't practiced.
Yeah, that first hit hurts.
But last night was an off night.
Okay.
And I was in the basement listening to records, and I just got this Lee Baines record that I produced last year, and I just got a vinyl copy of it, which is a great record. I'll give Lee a shout out.
Okay.
And immediately just picked up my bass and played with the record, and then I just ran through some Mercyland songs, and it's just like, I got to make music every day of my life.
You have to.
Yeah. It's like
I bet you never stopped writing, did you?
No.
Yeah, some people just have it like that.
I'm always going.
Yeah, you hear somebody say something, you're like, that's a fucking song title, You're not supposed to be writing or whatever, you're just like, I'm gonna stop, or it's Saturday night, it's like, why the fuck ain't I playing tonight, man? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you want
to, but
whatever. I mean, if you are what you do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so cool to see somebody. You've been a big influence in my life, that kind of thing. I always say on the show a lot, I'm like, the first time I really thought, oh shit, I could do this thing was like in in-bus classes.
Oh man, that
was
nice
like
to know.
One of the first times I was like, oh shit, I could do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And here we are doing it, man.
Here we are doing it.
Kindred spirits. I think we might be out of time though. 2:43.
Yeah. Got
a little bit.
No, I got about 2 minutes. I got
2 minutes
because I'm going to get a call. I've got another interview I got to do.
Okay, good.
It's Mercyland. It's Mercyland Day. We've been talking for a long time.
We have, man. It flew by. 81 minutes, man. 81 minutes. Thanks for coming and hanging with me. Let me ask you 2 quick questions. This is just something I wanted to ask for a lot of my listeners or bands and everything. What is the number one tip you would give an upcoming band right now? What should they be doing?
Play every day.
I knew you'd say that. Yep, every day. As much as they can.
Play all you can. If you don't want to do it, you've had a great question answered in your mind, which is play it because it's fun and you like it. Go to Guitar Center or whatever. But but play every day.
Yes. What would you say there's a lot of bands these days that come on the show and they're focused on the streaming side of it. Like they're working on getting the music out and that stuff too, but like they don't play any. Does that make sense? Like they're kind of waiting on it to happen without touring.
Yeah, well, tell your buddies about that at your restaurant job, I guess. I don't know. It's like, I mean, to me, if my choice was working some crummy job and then waiting for something to happen or go out and making something happen. There's this old cartoon you used to see time to time that's like 2 vultures sitting on a branch. And one of them looks at the other one and says, patience my ass. I say, let's kill something. That's my attitude.
I love that. That's the touring mindset right there.
That can be the cherry on top.
I'm going to definitely put that. I love that. Okay, 2 more short questions. All right. One more. Favorite band or favorite album you've ever produced? If you had to pick one, just off the top of your head maybe.
I would probably never be able to pick one because like picking my children, but I'll tell you a few that I love.
Notable ones.
A few that I love, both because of the music and because of the spirit in which they were made. Gland's self-titled.
Okay.
Drive-By Truckers, Brighter Than Creation's Dark.
Ooh. Okay.
Bloodkin Out-of-State Plates. Deer Hunter Halcyon Digest.
Yeah, Deer Hunter, love
it. This new Lee Baines record.
Okay.
Battle of Atlanta, which is incredible. No, sorry, it's not called Battle. It's one of the songs. It's like once they're out, I almost can't keep track of Old Time Folks. And Dexatine's Hardwire Healing. That's a great one. And there's a real deep cut oddball. Is a record by an artist called Ill Ease. And the album is called, there's 2 of them. One's called Circle Line Tours, and the other is called The Exorcist. But the one song in particular, if I had to play somebody said, what do your recordings sound like? I would play them this song by Ill Ease called Sick Groove.
Sick Groove.
And it's unlike any other kind of music that exists.
Really?
But it's highly addictive.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out. Sick Groove. That's
Yeah.
a great answer. Great answer. Everybody, go give a listen to all of those.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much for coming on,
Thanks
Dave.
for
This has
having
been a
me.
pleasure. This has been on my to-do list since I started the show. This was like one day we'll get Barbie on. Was gonna be one of my goals. So I appreciate you, man.
Time for a new
Fascinating.
goal.
Yeah, I know. I gotta set some higher goals, man. I've been smiling the whole time. Appreciate you coming on. Thank y'all for watching. Let's give the camera a wave so we have a thumbnail. All right, give them a smile.
See
there
you, my
we go.
friends.
Thank you so much, man. Bye.